Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. A fire official says a blaze that broke out in the Hollywood Hills is rapidly expanding after a mandatory evacuation order was issued. Californian Battalion Fire Chief said there had been zero progress in containing the fires because of high winds and dry conditions. At least 5 fires are currently active across Los Angeles, with at least 5 people confirmed to have been killed. More than 130,000 people have already had to evacuate, and the homes of a number of celebrities, including Paris Hilton and Billy Crystal, have been destroyed.
Hurricane-force winds are usually accompanied by rainstorms, but these are hurricane-force winds that are combined with extremely dry drought conditions. To provide context, at 10:20 a.m. yesterday, the Palisades fire was at 10 acres. 12 minutes later, it was at 200 acres.
Tributes are being paid to the ex-US President Jimmy Carter at his state funeral in Washington. The flag-draped casket arrived at Washington National Cathedral in the kind of pomp and ceremony the former humble peanut farm owner ironically decried. All 5 living presidents were watching on: Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Barack Obama, George W. Bush and Bill Clinton. Mr. Carter, who was president from 1977 to 1981, died in December, aged 100. Meanwhile, the US President Joe Biden, here visiting a Santa Monica fire station as wildfires rage in Southern California, has said he thinks he would have defeated Donald Trump and won re-election in November. Speaking to USA Today in an exclusive interview, Mr. Biden did, however, add that he was unsure if he would have had the stamina for another 4-year term. In the wide-ranging interview with Susan Page, Mr. Biden also said he was still considering preemptive pardons for foes of Donald Trump. Britain will create a new sanctions regime to target the leaders of networks that smuggle tens of thousands of people into Britain each year, as well as the often Chinese makers of the boats and motors they use. The Foreign Secretary David Lammy said the laws would complement other reforms. Burkina Faso's military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has sparked concern when he attended Tuesday's inauguration of Ghana's President John Mahama with a holstered pistol at his waist. Some have described the unusual move as a breach of security protocol. Others have seen it as a lack of trust in the ability of Ghanaian officials to protect the junta chief. Mahama was sworn in after beating the candidate from the then governing party by a large margin in last month's election. Mozambique's opposition leader Venancio Mondlane has returned from self-exile, defiantly claiming to have won a hotly contested October election. But security forces later used tear gas to disperse supporters who had gathered to greet him. The disputed October the 9th poll, which Mondlane says was rigged, has sparked demonstrations over the past few months in which hundreds of protesters have been killed. Mondlane's return could further exacerbate protests, which have continued sporadically since the Electoral Commission declared victory in mid-October for the candidate of the ruling Frelimo party, extending its half-century in power. Supporters of the Venezuelan opposition leader took to the streets of Caracas ahead of the inauguration of President Nicolas Maduro for his 3rd term. Opposition supporters rallied in the streets of eastern Caracas, waving flags and chanting slogans that called for Venezuela's freedom. Other major Latin American cities such as Buenos Aires, Santiago, Lima and Mexico City also saw demonstrations in favor of opposition leader Edmundo Gonzalez, who has promised to return to Caracas to be sworn in as president. And archaeologists have uncovered intact portions of the foundation wall of pharaonic Queen Hatshepsut's Valley Temple in Luxor and the nearby tomb of Queen Teti Sheri, grandmother of Ahmose I, the first pharaoh of Egypt's Golden New Kingdom era. The discovery of more than 1,000 decorated stone blocks on the outskirts of Hatshepsut's funerary temple was announced by team leader Zahi Hawass, an Egyptian archaeologist and former Minister of Antiquities, who has been leading excavations at the site since 2022. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.